Take me to your leader. Welcome to Headbangers at the Hangar. I'm your host, Andrew Mercer. Welcome back to the show. We are coming to you live from the beautiful Hilltop Studios in Middletown, New York. How is everybody doing today? Just a reminder, the show is brought to you by Monster Energy. Now, Monster, I don't want to scare you, but before I'm recording this podcast, I did go to Dunkin' Donuts and I got my energy source from a cold brew. I had it black, but, I had a cold brew, not Monster Energy. So let this be a lesson. I am promoting you for free, but I am not beholden to you. I can go elsewhere, but luckily for you guys, I am a loyal man. I do not cheat. I do not sleep around, but just let this be a lesson. I am not beholden. But this show is brought to you by Monster Energy, as always. And as always, by the great Spotify. Thank you, Spotify, for all you do. And just a reminder as well, if you'd like to be a part of the show, you can send me an email at HeadbangersAtTheHangar@gmail.com. Hanger is spelled Hanger. You can email me if you like what you hear. You can email me if you have a suggestion of what you want me to talk about for future episodes. You can email me if you want to be on the podcast. You can email me if you want to refer somebody to be on a podcast. Get involved. If you shoot me an email, I will respond to you. Guaranteed. Now this episode, it's going to be a little somber. Maybe it won't be. Could be a celebration. But today, the metal world grieves, and I'm not talking about just Lexi Fox leaving Steel Panther. Dressed in a old me, stretched across my shame, all the torment and the pain leak through, cover me. I'd do anything ever to myself, just to have for myself. Now I don't know what to do. Don't know what to do. Hey, that's a bad note. I don't know what to do. And she makes me sad. Guys, I'm not Beethoven. But the metal world grieves. Joey Jordison has passed away. Of course, the ex-drummer of Slipknot, of Murder Dolls. He was an inspiration to all metalheads. He was considered, and I don't think it was close. Now, when you want to talk about best metal, you want to talk about best drummers of all time, rock and roll, You got Geddy Lee is considered number one for rock and roll. You got Geddy Lee of Rush, John Bonham of Led Zeppelin, Keith Moon of The Who. But when you talk about heavy metal music, in the sense of heavy, we're not talking classic rock, we're not talking 70s, we're not talking 60s. We're talking modern heavy metal. Joey Jordison is and will forever be considered the greatest heavy metal drummer of all time, and it's not even close, with all due respect to other drummers out there. Before we get into the Slipknot background, he was used by many other bands. He did some work with Manson. I saw him drum live for Korn. He did some stuff with Metallica. If you needed a badass drummer, the best in the biz, you called up Joey Jordison. He was the best. Now, with regards to Slipknot, you think of Slipknot nowadays, and Corey Taylor is the face of that band. And Corey Taylor is a bad motherfucker. I love that man. I love Slipknot. I love Stone Sour. I love that guy. But with all due respect to Corey, he is not the backbone of Slipknot. Slipknot was founded back in the early 90s by Joey Jordison, Sean Crahan, aka Clown, and Paul Gray, their bassist. Now, Paul Gray has already passed. He has died as well. That was probably probably about a decade ago, give or take a couple years, but some drug problems, and he passed away. And now Joey passed away. So 2 out of the 3 founding members have died, which it's crazy to think about. It's the biggest heavy metal band in the world, and 2 of the 3 guys that started it are gone. They're not here anymore. So, Joey was, I'm not in the studios, okay? But by all accounts, he was doing the majority of the music writing, guitars, drums, bass. Maybe not bass. Paul was probably doing bass. And lyrically, especially in the early days, it was Joey, it was Sean, and later on, when Corey came aboard, he was writing some lyrics too. But the backbone of those early tracks is thanks to Joey Jordison. He was a multi-instrumentalist. That guy did it all. He did it all. Let me give you some samples here. Let's take it back. And this is not technically the beginning. When you talk about Slipknot, the beginning is MFKR. Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. But it's not a popular album because limited copies were released. Also, the band was not complete. It was a demo-y kind of band. Corey was not yet in the band. But the band did take a lot of music that was on that album and incorporated that into the self-titled Slipknot album, which came out in 1999. And this is a little bit of how that started. Sick. Listen to the drums. Let's find the main riff. When you think Slipknot, this is the riff that I think about. Yeah. That's the riff right there. That's the riff. And the next track after that, I'm not going to go through all the tracks on the first album. But then here's Eyeless. Find the breakdown.
Away from
It's coming, it's coming. That snare. Here we go. Drop it. Woo! Oh. This is how Slipknot came onto the scene. This one's called Wait and Bleed.
I felt the air rise up in me, kneel down and clear the stone of leaves. I wander out where you can't see, inside my shell I wait and bleed. I felt the air rise up in me, kneel down and clear the stone of leaves. I wander out where you can't see, inside my shell I wait and bleed. Goodbye, a weapon of our town, the night is bright of this time. Everything is turning fast for me. My eyes are running cold, the air is standing straight out. This is not the way.
I'll give you one more off of the self-titled album. This is a kind of a rarer track. This is one of my favorite Slipknot songs. This one's called Purity. Let me find the chorus.
Ways can't escape this place.
Alright, it's coming.
It's on my face, overbearing. I can't get out. It's on my face, overbearing. I can't.
Ah, shit.
My own cause, fearing laughter scoffed, learning.
Quick.
I can't get out.
Oh, here it is. The great Corey Taylor on vocals. Drums are a little bit more tame on this track. That's one of the reasons why I love Slipknot, man. They bring the heavy, and then they even it out with melody. Listen, before I'm a metalhead, I'm a musician. I like all kinds of different music. So when you can bring the heavy stuff, get the juices flowing, and then give me a melodic singing chorus where I can understand the lyrics, where I can get down with it, like Wait and Bleed, Purity, I love that shit. That is my jam. That's part of the reason why Slipknot, to me, is my favorite metal band. So we did that. That was the self-titled album. And then they moved on to do my favorite album by them. The follow-up, Iowa. Now, the original Slipknot album, it was different in so many ways. Anyone who's not familiar with the band, first of all, you're a noob. Second of all, they have drums, and then they have two percussions. So part of the reason why the sound is so heavy is because you got somebody drumming back there, and then you got a guy with a baseball bat and a keg go push, a push, a push, Ken Griffey Jr. style. And then you got somebody else banging. I don't even know what they're called. Maybe bongos. Let me turn this off. Get the energy bill down in the house. He's banging on some other drums. So basically you got a wall of just drums and percussion that is overwhelming you. So it was different. The sound was just from the studio. Then you get to the live performance. There's 9 guys on this stage. just intensity at all times. Guys banging on kegs, banging on drums. You got guys on turntables. It was completely different, unless you're Mushroom Head, and you would say that Slipknot ripped you off, which I don't know, maybe they did, but Slipknot did it better. Even though Mushroom Head is very good, I like Mushroom Head a lot. So then they did that, got some acclaim, and then they came out with Iowa. Here's a taste of Iowa. This one is called Disaster Piece. Spotify, thank you for letting me play all this music.
My face in and feel the smoke. Wanna dig inside, find a little bit of me. Cause the line gets crossed when you don't come clean. My wormwood needs your inside. You never get out cause you were never alive. I am infinite, I am the infinite finite. I'm analytical to take a look. Feel like I'm erased. To kill me just in case. Down like just in case. Everything around me's mine.
Listen to the double bass.
There's not in my eyes. I'm not about to pay. I'm not about to pay. Snorting and clawing all the way. You won't let me fucking stay. I'm not about to pay. I'm not about to pay. Is there another way to live? Cause it's the only way to die. I'm not about to pay. I'm not about to be God.
Slipknot's not a big breakdown band, but they got a couple. They're good because they're effective. Masterpiece. My Plague. We'll do this one. This was off the Resident Evil soundtrack. Let me get to the chorus. Listen to how heavy those guitars are. Melody. Heavy as fuck. It's got a soaring melody over top of it.
I'm turning it around like I'm not.
Heretic Anthem. This song is cool because back before late night TV sucked, they used to put metal bands on. I think not all of them, but like Conan did. This one was on Conan, I think. They did Heretic Anthem on Conan. But some of the, not all the guys, but some of the late shows did. And they just, 9 dudes just going crazy. Alright, this is Heretic Anthem. Listen to the drums on this one. We'll get out of the intro. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Joey, get down. Get to the end where it's just a tornado. Now. My face is melting. That's not a good representation. Let me give you some more.
Tell me again how you're tortured. I wanna know how you followed your orders so well. You're full of shit. You had a dream, but this ain't it. If you're 555, I'm 666. 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 No, you're 555 now. Was it allowed to be an heretic if you're 555 now?
Killing the cymbals.
Was it allowed to be an heretic?
Listen to that shit. What else could we give you off of Iowa? This is a sleeper song, in my opinion, off this album. This is called Metabolic.
Every day with this face goodbye.
The chorus.
With the mockery, I deny. I fall, but the game on coming. I'm always ready to die, but you're killing me. I'm always ready to die, but you're killing me. I'm always ready to die, but you're killing me. I'm always ready to die, but you're killing me.
Alright, so that was some stuff off Iowa. That's my favorite of all the Slipknot albums. It was like self-titled for me, and then Iowa a little bit above it. I felt like the heaviness, and it was a little bit more. That's in my opinion. But I mean, they're both great albums, the self-titled and Iowa. And then after that, the band went through kind of a shift, a little different in style, which, me personally, not a huge fan of how they changed from Iowa. Then they did Subliminal Verses. They took a lot of years off. Corey ventured off and did the Stone Sour self-titled album, which is very good. It's cool to see that, you know, he it's a different side of him, especially back then. You thought of him as just a singer of Slipknot screaming his head off, and then he did Stone Sour. But then we did Subliminal Verses, and this is how it starts. Prelude 3.0. Sounds different. You know, you can tell, oh boy, where's Slipknot? Where's the heavy? It's just different. And after that, we went to the next track where they redeemed themselves. The Blister Exists. Let me get the drum solo on this one. A nice drum solo. There's the chorus. You can hear it's not as heavy. The guitars are not as heavy. This song is badass. Here we go. We'll do two more off of this one. Duality. Everybody knows this song.
I push my fingers slowly stops the ache, but it's made of all the things I have to take. Jesus never.
You can hear in Corey's voice also, it's different. He's admitted to it. It's a lot less auto. You can tell. Here. Again, it's different. It's not my favorite aspect of Slipknot. Solid. Good album. Not my favorite. Alright, let's get to the chorus.
Afraid the strings, throw the shades, hold your breath. Listen, I am a world before I am a man. I was a creature before I could stand. I will remember before I forget. Before I forget that I am a world before I am a man. I was a creature before I could stand. I will remember before I forget. Before I forget that.
Still heavy. Different. Definitely different. Definitely different. And then after that, they did All Hope Is Gone, which was Joey's last album with Slipknot. Now we'll find out that his last album was Slipknot ever. And he did leave the door open in a past interview. He said that he had a bunch of tracks that he wrote specifically for Slipknot with hopes that he would end up back in the band. All Hope Is Gone was next. It was a lot like Subliminal Verses in a lot of ways. Softer. This is the hit off of that album, Psychosocial. Listen to Joey. Double bass is rocking. We missed it. We'll get the next one. Kind of like the blister exists. Snare happy here. Alright, here we go. Monster Energy. The preservation of the motor in me, and the rain will kill us all. We throw ourselves against the wall, but no one else can see the preservation of the motor in me. All right. So that was his last album with Slipknot. Then he was fired. How do you get fired from the band that you created? I have no idea. Little controversy behind the firing. The band tried to spin it that Joey was doing drugs, drinking, and he was kind of spiraling out of control. It was affecting the band. It was affecting the way that he played. Joey later disputed that. He said that he had, I forget the name of it, but some kind of illness with like his legs where it was affecting the way that he was playing. So the band thought he was fucked up because he was doing drugs. Meanwhile, he's going through some medical stuff. Who's right, who's wrong? Who knows? But that was it. That was he was out, and that was the last that Joey will ever drum with Slipknot. I remember, I should note this, on the Disaster Pieces DVD, I do not like drum solos. I think they're very boring. I find the guitar solos, just like when they're by themselves, nothing behind it, I find those boring as well. I like music in the context of the song, but with this, when on that DVD, like he was in his drum kit, like all strapped up. The whole thing is kind of strapped up, and it had like a contraption where the drum kit itself could rise, go left, go right, blah blah blah. So he's doing his thing, double bass everywhere. And it actually ended up spinning, so he's drumming, he's killing it. This dude's upside down, he's left, right, he's forwards, backwards, doggy style, you name it. He's on the drum kit just banging away from any angle, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, even though I am not a drum solo kind of guy. So that was Joey in Slipknot. You cannot, if you were a metal fan, you cannot mention Joey Jordison without mentioning his side project, Murder Dolls, which is killer. He teamed up with Wednesday 13, who I think is the most underrated guy in metal right now. He teamed up with him, and they did 2 albums. First one was called Beyond the Valley of the Murder Dolls. It was different from Slipknot. I remember I bought the album. I went to Best Buy. I physically bought a copy of the album with my dad. I bought it because Joey was in it. I was like, I gotta have it. Joey Jordison is in this band. So, bought it, and it was different. Like, I'm a metal guy. I'm not so much a punk guy. You know, I like Sex Pistols. Ramones is like, you know, alright. Misfits, they're pretty good. It's not, you know, punk is not my favorite. But I think just the fact that Joey was in it made me really like it. And it's not complete punk. I mean, it's punk with some metal. They were going for kind of like the 80s punky feel. This one is called, let's see. Yeah, we'll go with the opening track. This one's called Slit My Wrists. And in this band, Joey, on the albums he did the drums, but he also did like the guitars and bass. But live, he was the guitarist. He was not the drummer, which was a little weird for people to see, but it was cool to actually see him from behind the kit and see him out in the open. Listen to the punk stuff. Straight up punk. Got that retro kind of feel. Much simpler. Straight. Not doing a whole lot, but that's not what the genre calls for. A young Andrew Mercer was playing this song on guitar when I was probably like, I don't know, maybe 16, 17. Easy, man. It's easy stuff. It's not like heavy metal where your fingers are going all over the place. You gotta get these crazy dropped tunings. is just straight E, maybe some E flat, standard tuning, easy to play, fun to play. Wednesday 13 on vocals right here.
Till death do us part, love us apart.
That's a really good album. If you have not heard that album for whatever reason, Beyond the Valley of the Murder Dolls, of course Spotify has it. It's different than Slipknot. It's not what your typical kind of metal, but it's a really good album. Very vintage, punky, good stuff there. And then the band, they went through some lineup changes. Some pedophilia was involved. Thank you, Trip Eisen. So the next album they recorded, called Women and Children Last, which is a play on words of Van Halen's Women and Children First. So they went into the studio. It was just Joey and Wednesday 13, so just the two of them. This is more of like a metal album. This was heavy as hell right here. My Dark Place Alone. Ripping guitar here. Stupid fast.
Go!
Woo!
Sick, am I sick? And for these last 5 years I've been stuck up in here inside this brain that drains into society, injected in your veins. Give me hand grenades, give me razor blades, give me anything to make the pain go away. 'Cause these pills don't work, sometimes they make it worse. And now I'm slowly going down the fucking drain.
Here's the chorus.
The lights are on,
Wednesday 13.
there's no one home. And I sit here in my dark place alone.
Bass drum is moving. The drums are moving. My Dark Place Alone. We'll do. Let's do. There's a daylight down on a summertime suicide.
As the daylight died on the summertime suicide. As the daylight died on the summertime suicide.
I also like Joey because he likes cats. I like cats too. Joey was like, when you think of like goth, like Joey was pretty close. Pale,
Left a letter beside
little
her
dude.
bed, and it read that
jet
she
black
would be
dyed hair.
dead
That was Joey.
by the time that I read it.
Murder Dolls had a revive. They did the first album, then they were going for a while, and then they had a little bit of a revival. There was 8 years between releases, but that was Joey. And then after that, he did some other bands too. After he left Slipknot, you could tell just some of the interviews and stuff. Leaving Slipknot, that killed him. That was his baby. You know, and he left that band, and Murder Dolls was awesome. But then after that, he was in some other groups. Scar the Martyr, Vimic, Sansadium, I'm not sure. But at that point, you know, you could tell it's like, you know, grasping for straws a little bit, trying to fill a void. The dude just wanted to play, but it never got to the level of where he was when he was in Slipknot. And it's kind of sad